Okay, Macbeth, Act 4, Scene 3. Now, the last video lesson, the video lecture I had, was talked about scenes 1 and 2 and what is important about in those particular scenes, the meeting of the witches um, and the murdering of Macduff's family. Now we are moving on to where Macduff meets up with Malcolm in England. He has fled to England in an attempt, so he has fled south, because of course Scotland is north and England is south, so they have fled south. Macduff's fled south to England to meet up with Malcolm in the hopes of having him join forces, forming an army, and attacking Macbeth and dethroning him, of course. Malcolm, to Macduff's surprise, is not so amiable to his offer. Malcolm has chosen to be far more careful and far more suspicious than his father ever was. And he saw firsthand what happens to a man who trusts on face value. We remember what his father said about the first Thane of Cotter. He was a man in whom I placed an absolute trust. I do believe before he said that, he said, there is no art to find the mind's construction in the face. Malcolm understands that. So knowing that, and knowing that to trust someone implicitly just because they say they're loyal to you is foolish. So this scene is Malcolm's determined to test Macduff to see whether or not he can trust him. So enter Malcolm and Macduff. Let us seek out some desolate shade there and weep our sad bosoms empty. So let's go, we'll sit and we'll talk about the sorry state of Scotland and condole each other regarding that. Weep our sad bosoms empty, the fact that they are both feeling the sorrow of what's happening to their country. That's not what Macduff wants. Let us rather hold fast the mortal sword and like good men bestride our downfall birthdom. Let's take out the sword and go down there and fight for your right to the throne. And it has to be done, and it has to be done now, because each new morn, new widows howl, new orphans cry, new sorrows strike heaven on the face, that it resounds as if it felt with Scotland and yelled out like a syllable of dolor. Because every day men are being murdered, widows are being made, orphans are being made. Our country is suffering from so much sorrow. It's as if heaven has been slapped on the face and is howling out in agony with the country. Malcolm responds rather passionately, but yet still determined not to give in until he is confident he can trust Macduff. What I believe, I'll wail. What know, believe, and what I can redress, as I shall find the time to, friend, I will. What you have spoke, it may be so perchance. You may be honest, I don't know. This tyrant whose sole name blisters our tongue was once thought honest. We all believed Macbeth was a good guy. You have loved him well. He hath not touched you yet. I know that you and he were good comrades in arms. And neither Malcolm or Macduff know of the slaughter of Macduff's family. So as far as Malcolm's concerned, Macbeth has not done anything to harm Macduff, which makes Macduff suspicious in Malcolm's eyes. He's one of the few men Macbeth hasn't harmed. I am young, but something you may deserve of him through me. and wisdom to offer up a weak, poor, innocent lamb to appease an angry God. For all I know, you're going to take advantage of me. You're going to use me and hand me over to Macbeth so that you can gain honor in his kingdom. Macduff, no doubt, is offended by this. I am not treacherous, yeah, but Macbeth is. A good and virtuous nature may recoil in an imperial charge. You give power to someone, absolute power, and it will corrupt absolutely. And that is what has happened to Macbeth. But I shall crave your pardon. That which you are, my thoughts cannot transpose. That is the same as what his father said. There is no art to find the mind's construction in the face. I can't tell if you are what you say you are. Angels are bright still, though the brightest fell. The angel who fell, the brightest of all angels, was God's favorite, Lucifer. Macbeth was Duncan's favorite. Both fell. Though all things foul will wear the brows of grace, yet grace must look so. So what he's saying here is that, I may crave your pardon, which he says up here. He's recognizing that a foul, fiendish man is going to appear as a man of grace. Yet at the same time, men of grace will appear as men of grace. So Malcolm is intending to make sure that Macduff is what he says he is. I've lost my hopes. Perchance even there where I did find my doubts. Why in that rawness left you your wife and child, left those precious motives, those strong knots of love without leave taking? He asked the same question Lady Macbeth left. Why did you abandon these people? Why did you leave them there? Are you not worried? And then, of course, you can tell that Macduff is offended. And that comes here. I pray you, let not my jealousies be your dishonors, but mine own safety. I'm going to protect myself. You may be rightly just, whatever I shall think. Bleed, bleed, poor country. Great tyranny, lay thou thy bases sure, for goodness dare not check thee. Wear thou thy wrongs, the title is afeard. Fare thee well, Lord, I would not be the villain that thou thinkest for the whole space that's in the tyrant's grasp and the rich east to boot. So here he's mourning the fact that his country is going to continue to bleed and that tyranny is going to be allowed to reign because goodness will not step forward and battle it. And wear thou thy wrongs. This is the wearing clothes that don't fit. Well, Malcolm is wearing clothes that don't fit because he is not the king. He is dressed in the robe of traitor and regicide and parricide. Thy title is afeard. Now, another possible interpretation, where though thy wrongs, Scotland, continue to wear the wrong cloak with Macbeth as your king. And probably more likely that, because he is the one who's, why did you dress me in borrowed robes? And later on, they're going to mention that he cannot buckle his distempered nature within the belt of reason. Again, the idea that Macbeth does not belong in the throne. And of course, here he's basically saying your rightful king is too afraid to do anything about this. And then he says, goodbye. I am not that villain, and I wouldn't be that villain for all the money Macbeth could give me and all the riches of the East. Malcolm's not going to let him go. He's still not convinced, but he's still testing him. And this is where he really starts to play with Macduff's mind, I guess, where he starts the test. Be not offended. I speak not as an absolute fear of you. I think our country sinks beneath the yoke. It weeps, it bleeds, and each new day a gash is added to her wounds. I know what our country is going through. When it sinks beneath the yoke, that is a metaphor. The yoke goes on the neck and the shoulders of the ox, which then has to pull a great burden. And the country of Scotland is yoked by Macbeth, and it is such a heavy burden that the country is sinking. The country now personified as weeping and bleeding, and how every day a gash is added to the country's wound. More and more men are being killed. I think withal, there would be hands uplifted in my right. I do think that there are people there who would be willing to fight for me. And here, from gracious England, have I offer of goodly thousands. And I have thousands of men. England has offered me an army. But here's the test. For all this, when I shall tread upon the tyrant's head or wear it on my sword, yet my poor country shall have more vices than it had before, more suffer her, and more sundry ways than ever by him that shall succeed. Yet, once I depose Macbeth and take the throne, our country will suffer even more. The man who will succeed Macbeth will make the country worse. Macduff is stunned. What should he be? He can't conceive of something like that. It is myself, I mean. When I take the throne, Scotland will be worse, in whom I know all the particulars of vice so grafted, that when they shall be opened, black Macbeth will seem as pure as snow, and the poor state esteem him as a lamb, being compared with my confineless harms. So here, once I take the throne, everybody's going to be God. Oh, I wish we had Macbeth back. I mean, he was a bastard, but nothing like this guy. Macduff can't conceive that as possible. Not in the legions of horrid hell can come a devil more damned in evils to top Macbeth. Now, the legions are all of the minions, all of the devils fighting for the devil, fighting for Lucifer. And Macduff is like, there's no one in hell who serves the devil, who is more evil than Macbeth. Lovely, lovely exaggeration. Hyperbole. I grant him bloody, luxurious, avarice, false, deceitful, sudden, malicious, smacking of every sin that has a name. He's all this and more. But there's no bottom, none, in my voluptuousness. Your wives, your daughters, your matrons, and your maids could not fill up the cistern of my lust, and my desire all continent impediments would o'erbear that did oppose my will. Better Macbeth than such a one to reign. Yes, but you see, I'm not going to say. I'm a man whore. There aren't enough women in this country for me. I mean, I want to screw them all of them. I want to screw your mothers. I want to screw your sisters. I want to screw your handmaids. I want them all. And no one could stop me. Now, really, we're better off with Macbeth than to have someone like me. Now, Macduff considers this. Yeah, no, that's not a great trait. Boundless impertinence in nature is a tyranny. It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and fall of many kings. I like to allude to Bill Clinton, former president of the United States. Now, how many of you remember that? This was actually quite funny in the years when Clinton was going through the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Because, he says here, but fear not, yet to take upon what is yours. You may convey your pleasures in a spacious plenty, and yet seem cold. The time you may so hoodwink. It's perfectly fine for you to be this voracious, sex addict, because we have willing dames enough. There cannot be that vulture in you to devour so many as will to greatness dedicate themselves, finding it so inclined. I mean, seriously, it's not the best trait for a king, but there are enough women out there who want to have sex with a king that we can, in fact, nurture your excessive sexual desires. Even a king who likes to have sex on a regular basis, who insists on getting laid all the time with many, 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 many different women, can be accommodated. That king is still better than Macbeth. Well, Malcolm's going, okay, so he's accepting a slut for a king. Well, here goes. Here's test number 2. With this there grows in my most ill-composed affection such a staunchless avarice that were I king, I should cut off the nobles for their lands, desire his jewels and this other's house, and my more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more, that I should forge quarrels unjust against the good and loyal, destroying them for their wealth. Avarice, greed. Yes, well, I'm not just a man whore. I'm greedy. I want all the land, all the money. I will go out of my way to cause disturbances between people so that I can secure their lands and fortunes. The more I have, the more I'm going to want. My more having would be as a sauce to make me hunger more. Okay, Macduff is like, yeah, ouch. This average sticks deeper. This is worse. This is worse than, just having to get laid every day. This grows with more pernicious root than summer seeming lust, and it hath been the sword of our slain kings. A lot of kings have been killed for their greed. Yet, I'm going to solve this one for you. Do not fear, Scotland hath foisons to fill up your will of your mere own. All these are portable with other graces weighed. So we can put up with the greed and we can put up with the whoring because there are women enough for you who will be more than willing to tend to your physical needs. And, well, Scotland's a very wealthy country, so we can keep you in gold. We can put up with these considering all of your other graces. Well, this is where Malcolm basically punches him right between the eyes. But I have none. I have no graces. The king becoming graces as justice, verity, temperance, stableness, bounty, perseverance, mercy, loneliness, devotion, patience, courage, fortitude. I have no relish of them, but abound in the division of each several crime, acting in many ways. Nay, had I power, I should pour the sweet milk of concord into hell, uproar the universal peace, confound all unity on earth. He just ended Macduff's arguments in his favor. What he's described, with the exception of the man whore, is pretty much Macbeth. But once somebody is deemed evil in the eyes of the world, every vice is tossed in their direction. This is it. He's cut off Macduff's argument that he should be king. Macduff has nothing more to say. Oh, Scotland, Scotland, if such an one be fit to govern, speak. I am as I have spoken. So, am I fit to be king, sir? Fit to govern? No, not to live. You don't even deserve to live. That's how pathetic you are. Oh, nation miserable, with an untitled tyrant, bloody sceptred, when shalt thou see thy wholesome days again? Since that the truest issue of thy throne by his own interdiction stands accursed, and does blasphemy his breed. There's no hope for Scotland, because it is under this untitled tyrant, a man who does not belong on the throne, who does not deserve the throne. And Scotland will never see a healthy day, because the rightful heir, the truest issue of thy throne, by his own speaking, by his own interdiction, by his own voice, is accursed. He blasphemies his family. And now he turns on Malcolm and tells him that he should be ashamed, in essence. Like, this is your family. This is where you come from. Thy royal father was a most sainted king. The queen that bore thee oftener upon her knees than on her feet died every day she lived. It's like, even though he doesn't say it, he might as well say, you are a disgrace to your father and your mother. Fare thee well. These evils thou repeatest upon thyself have banished me from Scotland. Oh, my breast, thy hope ends here. There's no hope. He gives up. My dog is going crazy. I'm sure you can hear her ripping the crap out of my, thank God, very old couch. Now she's snorting because she's so happy with her antics. Malcolm is convinced. This did it. Macduff has passed the test. Macduff, this noble passion, child of integrity, shows innocence in the man, hath from my soul wiped the black scruples, reconciled my thoughts to thy good truth and honor. The way in which you've responded to my self-recrimination has convinced me that I can trust you. Now, he now explains why he put Malcolm. Malcolm explains why he put Macduff through this. Devilish Macbeth, by many of these trains, has sought to win me into his power, and modern wisdom plucks me from over-credulous haste. Macduff has done this before, where he sent his men to try to lure me back into Scotland. And so, it was necessity for me to test to ensure that I could trust you. Now that he can trust him, he swears, but God above deal between thee and me. For even now I put myself to thy direction, and unspeak mine own detraction. So God seals us together. We now form a compact, and it is one that is blessed by God. And now, before Macduff, he takes back everything he said. Here abjure the taints and blames I laid upon myself, for strangers to my nature. First one, the man whore. I am yet unknown to woman. I am a virgin. Never was forsworn. I never lied. Scarcely have coveted what was my own. So all of this greed. At no time broke my faith. If I gave my word, I kept it. Would not betray the devil to his fellow, and delight no less in truth than life. My first false speaking was this upon myself. So this is my first true lie, was when I told you these lies about myself. Now that I trust you, I can tell you what I am truly is thine and my poor country's to command. Now what he is he is the ruler who sees himself in his proper role, that as the servant of the people. He is his country's to command. The country commands of him. Now, imagine Macduff's state of mind at this point. Oh, wait, before we get to Macduff's state of mind, we've got him telling Macduff that they now have old Syward with 10,000 warlike men, and they are ready. But then, of course, he asks them, "Why are you quiet?" And Macduff identifies the paradox of emotions, the conflicting emotions he's going through. Such welcome and unwelcome things at once. Tis hard to reconcile. I mean, whoa, you just convinced me you were the worst, the most heinous human being, and then you retract it all. My mind still has to wrap itself around that. Okay, so that was the test, and Macduff passed. Now a doctor comes in, and the doctor brings some very important news. Now, this isn't anything that will advance the plot the way Malcolm testing Macduff does, because he needs to know for sure he can trust Macduff so that they can go together to fight and defeat Macbeth. The doctor comes with the intent of describing the pious King Edward. And Malcolm asks the doctor, "Comes the king forth, I pray you?" And the doctor says, "Aye, sir, there are a crew of wretched souls that stay his cure." They believed that King Edward, the pious King Edward, had the healing touch. And so this is a king who is the polar opposite of Macbeth. Thus, he is a foil to Macbeth. Macbeth murders. He has created a sickness in Scotland. The king, King Edward, his polar opposite, heals with his touch. Macbeth's touch kills. King Edward's touch heals. That's one of the three ways the king is a foil to Macbeth. Macduff is curious. So what's this disease he talks of? He says their malady convinces, yada, yada, yada. And so Macduff's like, after the doctor leaves, what's he talking about? What disease? 'Tis called the evil. Now, probably the Black Plague, definitely one of the many plagues that were sweeping through Europe and England. And again, we're told a most miraculous work in this good king, which often since my here remain in England, I have seen him do, how he solicits heaven, himself best knows. So this is a man of God, a man who solicits God's aid, God's love. Macbeth, a man of Lucifer, a man of the devil, who solicits the devil's aid. But strangely visited people, all swollen and ulcerous, pitiful to the eye, the mere despair of surgery he cures, hanging a golden stamp about their neck, put on with holy prayers, and 'tis spoken, to the succeeding royalty he leaves the healing benediction. So he can heal with the touch, and his ancestors will heal with the touch. With this strange virtue, he has a heavenly gift of prophecy, so he is a man of God. And sundry blessings hang about his throne that speak him full of grace. The people of England love him. The people of Scotland despise Macbeth. So we have two kings side by side, polar opposites. King Edward the Pious is a foil to Macbeth, devilish Macbeth, not the pious king, devilish Macbeth. One has the power to heal. He heals with a touch. One kills and creates an illness in his country. One is a man of God doing God's bidding. The other is a man of hell doing the devil's bidding. One man is loved by his people. The other is despised. Macbeth and King Edward. So you have a foil, a very, very clean-cut description of a foil. And I like teaching this as so that kids can understand the character foil, because King Edward really has no other purpose at all in this play, except for the point that he gives an army to Malcolm, and now Edward is described solely to show us the polar opposite of Macbeth. Enter Ross. See who comes here. My countryman, but yet I know him not. My ever gentle cousin, welcome hither. I know him now. Good God, the times remove the means that make us strangers. I can't believe I didn't recognize him. We are so separated and torn apart that we become strangers to, men we know. Sir, amen. Stands Scotland where it did. Alas, poor country, almost afraid to know itself. It cannot be called our mother, but our grave, where nothing, but who knows nothing, is once seen to smile, where sighs and groans and shrieks that rend the air are made, not marked, where violent sorrows seem a modern ecstasy. The dead man's knell is there scarce asked for who, and good men's lives expire before the flowers in their caps, dying ere they sicken. So, another description of Scotland and its condition under Macbeth's rule. Poor country, almost afraid to know itself. The country reflecting the people. This could be synecdoche, a part representing the whole, or no, in this case, metonymy, where the country reflects the people. Then there's the personification of the country. We can't call the country our mother anymore. Our country is our grave. So it goes from being a personification where the country was our mother to now a metaphor where the country is our grave. Nothing's the same. No one smiles anymore. All we have are sighs and groans and shrieks, and violent sorrows are all we experience. This is sort of paradoxical. Violent sorrows seem a modern ecstasy. Ecstasy in this case is not the positive connotation we give to the word. It has a very negative, sort of extreme sense of the agony. And of course, the dead man's knell. Here at Not Duncan, for it is a knell that will summon thee to heaven or to hell. Remember when we spoke about the knell being the funeral bell? We don't even ask who's it for anymore, because everywhere you turn, a good man is dying. Oh, relation, too nice and yet too true. What's the newest grief? That's of an hour's age does hiss the speaker, each minute teems a new one. Every minute goes by, there is another grief. So the newest grief has probably passed us 10 times over. How does my wife? Why, well, I find this fascinating. Why does Ross avoid the topic? Because, of course, we're going to get to the end of the scene, a little further into the scene, and he's going to tell Macduff the truth. But right now, he's avoiding it. What is the issue behind? And when he says a little later on, you get the sense it is that it's the, don't shoot the messenger kind of thing. Also, it's not the kind of news one really wants to give someone. So how does my wife? Why, well, and my children? Well, too. The tyrant hath not battered at their peace. Macbeth has not troubled them. No, they were well at peace when I did leave them. So that's true. But seriously, he's equivocating. He's not telling him everything. He's telling him, when I left them, they were fine. But after he left them, they weren't fine. And now Macduff can tell that he's holding back. Be not a niggard of your speech. How goes it? Now, here, the word niggard is not what we're thinking it is, because we have all our modern connotations surrounding the racist slur that we use against African Americans, but this is not associated with that at all. To be niggard of speech means to not express yourself. Now, I don't know the etymology of that word, because if it is in fact based on if it does come from a racist expression, then we need to acknowledge that. Nope. But I'm not seeing anything. Niggard of speech. That's this one. I do want to know if it is if it has a racist beginning now. But I've never taught it with any racist understanding. It's always meant here it says don't be stingy with your words. Come on, speak, talk, tell me. So I am going to check into that. I don't know how I'll find it. I'll collaborate with other English teachers, who knows. When I came hither to transport the tidings which I have heavily borne, there ran a rumour of many worthy fellows that were out, which was to my belief witnessed the rather, for that I saw the tyrant's power afoot. Now is the time of help. Your eye in Scotland would create soldiers, make our women fight to doff their dire distresses. He still avoids the issue. He turns back to Malcolm and says, this is it. This is the time. When I left Scotland, the rumor was women are going to take out their knives. They're going to get out there and fight as well. Scotland is suffering so much. Women are willing to fight. Now, of course, 1500s, 1400s, 1300s, whenever this was, women weren't soldiers. Be it their comfort, we are coming thither. Gracious England hath lent us good seaward and 10,000 men. So they're coming with quite an army. And they've got old Seaward and 10,000. An older and better soldier none that Christendom gives out. So Scotland does not have to wait much longer. We are coming. We are coming with over 10,000 men. What I could answer this comfort with the like, this is good news, and I wish I could give good news in return. But I have words that would be howled out of the desert air where hearing should not latch them. What I have to say is so horrible and brutal. Macduff's guesses. What concern they? The general cause, or is it a fee grief due to some single breast? Is it something about the whole country, or is it something for one man? No mind that's honest, but in it shares some woe. Every honest man suffers with this news, though the main part pertains to you alone. If it be mine, keep it not from me. Quickly, let me have it. So this might be why why he's taken so long to say it. In this lovely form of synecdoche, let not your ears despise my tongue forever. Your ears, you are the listener. My tongue, I am the messenger. Don't despise me, my tongue, which shall possess them with the heaviest sound that ever yet thy heard. Please don't take it out of me. Don't blame me. Don't hate me for being the one to tell you the worst possible news you could ever get. I guess at it. And he does, because previously he asked, how's my wife? How are my children? The tyrant hasn't battered at their door. He guessed it. He knows it. Your castle is surprised, your wife and babes savagely slaughtered. To relate the manner, we were on the quarry of these murdered deer to add the death of you. Your women, your wife and your children, your entire family is slaughtered. Of course, their goal was also to kill you. Malcolm is shocked. Merciful heaven. Now he sees Malcolm. He sees Macduff. What Macduff has done is he's pulled his hat over his face to hide his tears. So we need no stage directions to say Macduff pulls his hat over his face, Macduff is weeping. It's here. What man? Ne'er pull your hat upon your brows. Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak whispers your fraught heart and bids it break. You can't keep this in. You have to let this out. My children too. Wife, children, servants, all that could be found. Everybody in his castle was wiped out. And I must be from thence. Guilt, personal responsibility, recognizing having left them, having abandoned them in a dangerous environment, just like Lady Macbeth said. And at the top of the scene, like Malcolm said, why did you leave your wife and children, those most dearest to you, in a place where you flew? My wife killed too, I have said. Malcolm now tries to comfort him, recognizing a similar loss for himself because his father was murdered. Be comforted. Let's make medicines of our great revenge to cure this deadly grief. So we're going to avenge ourselves against Macbeth. This is what Macduff needs to hear right now. He's just been told his wife, his children, his entire family has been slaughtered. He has no children. Who is he? Malcolm? Malcolm can't understand what it means to lose a wife and child, for he has none. Is it Macbeth? Macbeth can't understand what it means to lose children, because he has none. Lady Macbeth may have known what it is to suck, but we're left here recognizing that, again, in Shakespeare's day, infancy mortality rates would have been low. And so Lady Macbeth may have had children, but they would have all died. So Malcolm can't understand because he's too young and he doesn't have a wife and children, so he doesn't understand the depth of Macduff's grief. Macbeth, who has no children, has no concept. That's the only way someone could have done something like this. All my pretty ones. Did you say all? Oh, hell, kite, all. What? All my pretty chickens and their dam at one fell swoop? He's having trouble comprehending this. This is not easy news. This is not something that a person can just take in, which is why Ross had trouble telling him. Malcolm, however, doesn't understand and says, dispute it like a man. Once again, the theme of what makes a man. When Lady Macbeth questions Macbeth's masculinity and says, what kind of man are you to break this with me? Do it and you would be so much more the man, that kind of thing. And then he is unmanned after he murders Duncan. There's lovely irony for you. Malcolm sees Macduff mourning and grieving over the loss of his wife and child, and Malcolm is thinking, we got to dispute this like a man. You got to make medicine of our great revenge. So pull out the sword and get ready to fight. And Macduff, I shall do so. I will dispute it like a man, but, and now this is Shakespeare standing up and saying things that don't normally get said. We don't even allow men to have a proper sense of emotion today, even. Um, but I must also feel it as a man. A man is entitled to feel the emotions of his loss. He has just lost his wife. He has just lost all of his children, all of his servants. His castle has been wiped. And he says, I will feel it as a man. I have the right to feel what I have lost. I cannot but remember such things were more precious to me. These were my wife and my children were the most precious of my life, and they have been wiped away. They have been stolen from me. Did heaven look on and would not take their part? Sinful Macduff, they were all struck for thee here again. I am to blame. I am responsible. Yes, Macbeth killed them, but I am to blame. They weren't killed because of their own demerits, but for mine. They were killed because I oppose Macbeth. They were killed because I fled to England to build an army to depose Macbeth, and their death is on my shoulders. And Malcolm again is trying to turn this grief and this agony into a desire to fight. Be this the whetstone of your sword. A whetstone, it's how you sharpen the sword. You ever see those in those movies, like if you saw The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings or any of these old movies of, middle, the Dark Ages battles. You've got this stone, this big stone, it rolls and it's like a wheel and it goes through water and they pump with their foot. I can't remember exactly how they're doing it, but they're sharpening the swords on the whetstone. So the whetstone is a way of sharpening a sword. And so he wants this grief to be the whetstone of his sword. Let grief convert to anger. So take this grief and turn it into red hot anger. Blunt not the heart. Enrage it. So don't let your heart stop you. Don't let it hold you back and weaken you. Have it anger you. Oh, I could play the woman with mine eyes and braggart with my tongue. He has gone through such a severe loss that, yes, he could sit down and weep and wail and cry and express his loss. He could do that for a very long time. But the state of the country is not going to allow him. The gentle heavens cut short all intermission. There's no time for me to do this. Instead, he turns to God and says, front to front, bring thou this fiend of Scotland and myself within my sword's length. Set him. If he escape, heaven forgive him too. God, bring me front to front with Macbeth. I want him within my sword's length so that I can kill him. And if he escapes me, heaven can forgive him too. He still bears this guilt of his family's death. And killing Macbeth is one of the only ways that he can avenge them. Now Malcolm's happy. He's being man. This tune goes manly. This is the way we need to speak. We need to be strong. See, Malcolm has had the advantage of time to get over that weeping and wailing and that sorrow, and has had the time to convert his heartfelt sorrow into anger. Macduff is required to do that almost instantaneously, and that is a very hard thing for anyone to do. But now he is willing to, because the situation is such that he must, and Malcolm, in an essence, congratulates him. This tune goes manly. This is the way a man will talk. Come, go we to the king. Go we to the King of England to get our power, or go we to the King of Scotland, Macbeth? Our power is ready. Our lack is nothing but our leave. We're ready. We have 10,000 men. We have Old Syward. We've got Northumberland that was mentioned earlier. Macbeth is ripe for shaking. Lovely metaphor. A fruit tree where all of the fruit is ripe, and it's so ripe that all you have to do is take the trunk and give it a good shake, and the fruit will fall to the ground. And the powers above put on their instruments. Receive what cheer you may. This night is long that never finds the day. We're ready. We're going. We're going to take him down. Okay, so that's Act 4. I will do Act 5, which I believe consists of, it's fairly long. Look at that. 8 scenes. That may, I don't know. Some of the scenes are really short. It may take 2 video lectures. I did 2 video lectures for Act 4 because Scene 3 is such a rich and intense scene. I really wanted it to have its own lecture. Alrighty, my students, my summer school, 2020 summer school, English, 20 students. Only one act left to go.